Got my banjo shirt on today, but I want to talk about something that's really, really serious. Perhaps I should be wearing a suit, but I don't really care much about how I look. It's the knowledge and information that I wish to share. And today's topic is lawyers and their role in Western civilization circa 2024 as compared to the way it used to be with lawyers. And let me begin this with a news story that I saw the other day. And I'm serious when I say that this is one of the most absurd things I've ever heard about. But a lawyer, actually a guy who uh, represents lawyers and is therefore somewhat of a spokesman, said that it is dangerous for people to pick up coins that they find on the street or on the sidewalk or in the parking lot like me, that they were at risk because that money doesn't belong to them. Just think about this for a minute. I've shown you my money jar, which I have, the coins that I've collected from my parking lot here, and I have, literally hundreds of dollars worth of coins and paper money that I've found on my daily walks around the apartment complex. And this guy is telling me that what I'm doing is actually putting me at risk because that money doesn't belong to me. It belongs to somebody else. So now we're going to talk. What are we talking about? Suing somebody who picks up a quarter, because it was somebody else's, it belonged to somebody else. This is the absurdity to which we have gotten to with lawyers, not our legal system. I know that this is a very controversial topic because it's filled with exemptions. I know that not all lawyers, feel this way. In fact, many of them may not even be aware of what I'm about to tell you. But lawyers are the biggest blight on our culture today. And I'll tell you why. Long ago, in the late 70s, when I was working in the news business for WISN TV in Milwaukee, I was involved in the local press club, Big J journalism, the real journalists in Milwaukee had a press club. And this club was known for its Sacred Cat Award. When they were building the place, they found the skeleton of a cat inside the walls. And so they put it back together and mounted it under glass as the mascot of the Milwaukee Press Club. So their highest honor for journalism was called the Sacred Cat Award. And I got involved in that particular aspect of the Milwaukee Press Club. And I nominated a guy for the Sacred Cat Award that was a friend of mine in the press, and his name his name was fuck. His name was Reuven Frank, and Reuven was a former head of NBC News in the 70s, and I worked many years for an NBC News client, so I was familiar with him and his work. When Saturday Night Live began, it was only three Saturday nights a month. The fourth Saturday night went to a show produced by Reuven Frank called NBC Weekend. It starred Lloyd Dobbins and Linda Ellerbee, and it was very popular because it was really the first news magazine program that dealt with trends, and especially youthful oriented trends. And I admired that. So I started corresponding with him because, I'm a man of ideas. And so he bought a lot of my ideas for NBC Weekend, and I'm very proud of that. So I nominated him for the Sacred Cat Award, and he showed up with Linda Ellerbee and Lloyd Dobbins. And he was, the Sacred Cat winner gets to make a speech before the Milwaukee Press Club. And I was absolutely shocked when Reuven Frank, former head of NBC News and producer of NBC Weekend, he talked about lawyers and how dangerous they had become for us in the West. And it was through Reuven that I first learned of the conflict of interest that exists in our government involving lawyers. And I want you to pay really close attention here, because this is, again, one of the biggest blights that we have on our culture. Lawyers practice within the judicial system of our government, the courts. That's where they practice. That's where they make their money. They live and work in the judicial system. In fact, every member of the Supreme Court is a lawyer. Not every lawyer is, of course, a member of the Supreme Court, but that gives you an idea of the power of lawyers working where they belong, which is in the legal system of our government. They have no business, as a group, or even, I would say, individually, they have no business in our legislative branch. Do you see the conflict of interest here? If lawyers can make the laws that are then used within the judicial branch of the government, then every time they vote, it is a conflict of interest. How could we allow this? How did they get away with this? If you're as old as me, you remember back to a time when lawyers couldn't advertise, except, like a yellow page ad with them, and they were not allowed by law to compare themselves to other lawyers, because the idea was that all lawyers are the same and capable of handling any kind of case. Well, lawyers got in the legislature, and now we have, open season on anything for lawyers and advertising. And, every state, every communicator, every communications company has to deal with lawyers, and lawyers run everything in our world today. So as a postmodernist, I'm seeing this as, a fruit of the modern era. The idea that people must be governed from a top-down perspective. But the Great Horizontal has interrupted all of that, and we are now aware of things that we were never aware of before. And information on anything, as I've told you, is just a click away. So we can see how this works from our perch within the postmodern era. This is the greatest conflict of interest in the world today. Lawyers in the legislature making laws that they then deal with in the judicial branch, which is where they belong. I remember talking back in the 70s with a labor union head. And of course, Wisconsin at that time was a big labor state. And he talked about losing their clout within the legislative branch of the government and losing it to lawyers. And so people have been aware of this for a long time, but we are powerless to do anything about it. So let me give you a prediction about what we can do and what we should do downstream. This may not happen. In fact, it's not going to happen overnight because, the lawyers are fighting for their very lives against the postmodern era because they like things just as they are. But, the way of nature is change. It is the dream of man to have order. And, so they like their very ordered, system of running things. And we must come against that. I envision a day when there will be a lawyer in a box, an instrument, an instrument of technology that will allow us to represent ourselves, by producing all of the documentation, all of the, the words that we need, to represent ourselves in court. And believe me, we can and are supposed to represent ourselves in court. We hire a lawyer because, well, it's complicated. But complexity is the tool of lawyers in maintaining their position within the status quo. That has to end because we are being led around by people who have a self-interest in what they are doing in terms of governance. We used to look at lawyers as, well, they're smarter than the rest of us, so why shouldn't they govern? Well, they shouldn't govern because they practice in the judicial system. They have no business making laws that they then, use for self-interest. It's a conflict of interest, ladies and gentlemen, and we cannot allow it to continue. Of course, who the hell am I? I'm just a single person out here. I'm just like everybody else. I'm just a common Terry.